Welcome to Modern Anarchy, the podcast exploring sex, relationships, and liberation. I'm your host, Dr. Nicole.
I tried to keep her quiet, but she's screaming inside of me. I tried to keep her hiding, oh, shut up. I tried to keep her quiet, but she's a wild, wild woman.
On today's episode, we have Erin join us for a conversation about the sexual tension between safety and risk. Together, we talk about following your erotic compass, the existential obstacle of isolation, and coming to our life intentions. Hello, dear listener, and welcome back to Modern Anarchy. I'm so happy that you are here tuning in to another episode each Wednesday. My name is Dr. Nicole. I'm a sex and relationship psychotherapist providing a psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, author of the Psychedelic Jealousy Guide, and founder of The Pleasure Practice, where I teach students from around the world how to craft pleasurable sex lives and non-monogamous relationships. Dear listener, may you continue to find the places, the people, the spaces that provide you enough safety to take risks with your vulnerability. Erin and I get really deep into this concept of what it means to play that tense line between safety and risk. And we both explore how the more safety you feel, the more risk you can take, right? So I am feeling that right now as I just closed out my pleasure liberation programs, the sexuality programs. Folks just graduated this last week, and to see people slowly build into trusting one another and the ability to take risks and express their vulnerability around their growth edges with their sexual pleasure and their connections. I mean, tears, so many tears were shed in this year's cohort, so many tears were shed. And really, the movement comes from the vulnerability, that moment that you take a risk to share, when there's that safety, right? When you've built that container, right? You can share and be held, be seen, be attuned to. And that's where we can do so much of the healing from these experiences where the systems or past people or lovers have dropped us, right? To step into more connection when there is that safety to take those risks. And dear listener, just know that wherever you are in the world, I'm sending you the biggest hug if you would like one. And just really, really, really rooting for you to find the people, the spaces, the community that can hold you so that you can keep taking those risks of your vulnerability. And in doing so, step in even to more groundedness of your own energy and ability to support others with feeling that groundedness in their own life. And that's how we're going to create the world that we dream of. All right, dear listener, if you are ready to liberate your pleasure, you want to join some of my pleasure liberation programs, get a touch into some of the things that I'm speaking about here in this vulnerability and the growth and the transformation, you can learn more and gather so many free resources at modernanarchypodcast.com, linked in the show notes below. And I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I truly could not do this work without you and your support. So thank you for joining me in this. Thank you for supporting me. And thank you for supporting the show for the last 5 years together. And with that, dear listener, please know that I'm sending you all of my love, and let's tune in to today's episode. Dear listener, there's a space already waiting for you where you are invited to let go of every old script about sex and relationships and begin living a life rooted in your pleasure, empowerment, and deep alignment. I'm Dr. Nicole, and this is your invitation to the Pleasure Liberation Groups, a transformative, educational, and deeply immersive experience designed for visionary individuals like you. Together, we'll gather in community to explore desire, expand relational wisdom, and embody the lives we're here to lead. Each session is woven with practices, teachings, and the kind of connection that makes real transformation possible. And I'll be right there with you, guiding the process with an embodied curriculum that supports both personal and collective liberation. This is your invitation into the next chapter of your erotic evolution. Say yes to your pleasure and visit modernanarchypodcast.com/pleasure practice to apply. And the first question that I ask every guest on the show is, how would you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Well, my name's Aaron Frazin. I'm a sex and relationship coach. I focus primarily on couples who have lost the spark or one person wants it a lot more than the other. And then I also focus on men's issues. So premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, and delayed ejaculation and porn. And I love witnessing people or couples move from sex being such an anxious thing
Mm.
to something that they feel so excited
Yeah.
to have, or just excited for the anticipation of it. Yeah, I witnessed that transformation in my own life and love walking alongside people as they get to do that too.
Yeah. It's so transformative. It impacts every area of our lives. And so
Hmm.
I'm sure we can really speak to the transformation that has brought in many of our clients, right? It's such an honor to do that work with them. And also, I would love to hear about your own personal journey. Where do you become passionate about this? What lights the fire for you to do this work?
Well, I originally got into it because outwardly I had it all. I was running a
Mm.
multi-million dollar, I wish it was billion,
Ah!
business, and I was married to a doctor, and
Mm.
I had my hobbies, and I had so much of my life together, but even though I had a lot of like the social accolades and the life I thought I was supposed to have, inwardly I was just like dying and I was not
Mm.
happy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was way off was my sex life. And so I was always listening to podcasts, like trying to figure it out. I went to grad school to become a therapist, really trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And years later, it like through this work, I really felt like a profound shift from doing what I thought I should do to like really tapping into like, what do I want? Not just like on a grand vision, but just like every moment, like what smells good that I want? What
Mm.
looks good that I want?
Yeah.
How can I move through life like totally tapped into myself? And my life started to balance from really trying to make sure everyone liked me and just like kind of manipulating the external world to like really noticing my internal world and not abandoning myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think everything slowed down for
Mm.
me. And I got really lucky to get into this work. Yeah, I get to just be with people experiencing some of the things I experienced, some things I've never
Yeah.
experienced, and help people connect again with their own desire or their partner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, the pleasure of being present, right? If you're going so fast, you won't even feel it, right?
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
you're, I fall into this often, like eating food so quickly, you don't even
Hmm.
taste it, right? And so I hear
Yeah.
you in terms of what it meant for you to have all of these quote unquote societally deemed pleasures, but there wasn't that alignment in your own lived body with the things that you were experiencing. And so, I'm curious if we were to go back to that time, what were some of the things that you noticed in your sex life that now you look back on and see how out of alignment they were? What were the things that were coming up for you?
Well, I had premature ejaculation
Mm,
and I was obsessed with fixing it
yeah.
and never could, even though I tried all of the things online. And the moment like my marriage actually at the time ended. The premature ejaculation never came back.
Mm,
And that was shocking to me because that taught me the relational element of all of this work. Sure, there's like in like a lot of masculine scripts, there's just like you should be stoic, you should be able to do all the interpersonal, like the inner work. But it was amazing that sex dramatically changed for me when my relationship shifted. And so that we're all interconnected. The things that are happening inside of me occur in we, right?
yep.
So that was one thing. I think another thing that came up for me was I didn't own my desire.
Mm,
I I wasn't able to like sit in my own body when I was turned on
mm.
by my partner or
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
and let the other person see that. I had to like move fast. I wasn't able to just like be like, yeah, this is good that I'm in my wanting energy and I'm gonna stay in it and I'm gonna let the other
Mm,
person see it.
mm. The tease.
The tease and also just like I'm happy this energy is
Yeah.
here and I don't need to run from it by like moving with it really fast or run from it by not initiating or like being
Yeah.
seductive. I made friends with my own desire. And once I like befriended it, like I don't know, I think I was taught a lot of things as a guy that told me that desire was bad.
Mm,
Or desire and what I could do with it reflected my self-worth.
yep.
I think I had a mentor once that taught me to stay in my own desire and stay in relationship with other people. And that was really helpful for I
Mm.
think I that younger me couldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm sure the younger me was like, what do you mean? Like, stay with what? What? Right? If you were to try and give some words to that younger self, because I'm sure there are listeners who are equally asking that question. What does it mean, Aaron, to stay with your desire? I hear you saying that it's not that lunging forward or that recoil back, but what does that actually mean with when you sit with it? I'm thinking discomfort, or truly, but I'm curious, like, what did you experience when you sat with it?
Erotic energy is in part tension.
Mm,
You're saying, I want something.
right.
And it's vulnerable. And the more you linger in the energy, the more there's tension. It's like flirting energy. It's like building tension, but you're not just like suddenly making out right away. Like
Right.
you're living in this like we're enjoying each other, but there's still space between us.
Right.
Learning to just say yes, like, oh, that person turns me on. And stay connected to my senses. Like, here's what I'm enjoying about this person in front of me.
Yeah.
While also, so like really like breathing into myself, allowing that energy to expand, allowing myself to want, while not collapsing the energy between the other person. So like
Mm.
really staying like if I'm like let's say if I'm single,
Mm-hmm.
I used to be someone that never flirted with a random person. But
Mm.
then it's just like you can like look at someone in the eyes and show that like if you're connected to
Yeah.
your energy, you can let them see that you're interested. And if they keep looking at you, well, maybe that's an invitation. But if they turn away, move on.
Yeah.
You know, staying in relationship with, the other person
Mm-hmm.
um, gives you a way to have your energy, but yeah, just do no harm with it either.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, of course, being conscious. And where do
hmm
we even draw that line of what flirting is when an erotic life force is running through every moment, right? It's an interesting line to think about. I remember as you were saying that as a child, I would always be called a flirt in such a negative context, right? Because so mononormative growing up. People are like, Nicole flirts with everybody. Now I find that as a high compliment. But back then I was really shamed. And I always just felt like I was being bubbly and present and interested and making eye contact, right? It's so heartbreaking to
Hmm.
think that even eye contact can be so difficult for people. You invite them to do just some breathing together with eye gazing, and it's some of the most terrifying things for people to be seen in that level of present. And that's not even bringing even sexuality and the quote unquote understanding we have of it. You know, if we want to get into the sacred energy exchange sort of language, then like, yes, right? But otherwise, that's just a moment of breathing together. And even there, so many people would be terrified just to be
Hmm.
seen and sit in that for that amount of time.
Yeah, for any listener, if the next time you're making eye contact with the person today or tomorrow, like see what happens
Yeah.
in your mind. Do you believe the other person's thinking something about you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you should be doing something different? Do you feel yourself stop breathing?
Yeah.
Do you feel excited? I don't know, but
Yeah.
like it's like interesting what we do to escape out of control, to escape vulnerability
Right.
instead of just mm, I guess what's interesting is like a lot of people either feel like the other person's judging them or feel like they're bad.
Mm.
But both of those are actually just ways to feel like they're in control again. And so what's it like to just breathe in this like out of control moment and not believe any of those
Right.
thoughts because you don't know.
Right. I know. I know. And so, or do I? Right there it is. Like, do I know?
Well, I mean, you do, but no. I mean, I do.
Right. No, I'm a humble beginner every day. I'm humbled by the universe, you know? I keep asking for it to give me all the lessons I need, and it does every day.
Hmm.
um, but right, as you were saying, you know, when you do meet another person in any context, we can't read minds, as you're alluding
Hmm.
to. And so our mind will make so many different narratives. Aaron's thinking this, Aaron's thinking that. Maybe it's this or that. Because you're right. I'm trying to find control of the situation so that I know
Hmm.
what's happening, right? And it's often very uncomfortable to surrender to the unknown. But it's funny because that's what we love in human relationships, right? Is this the unpredictable? It's like I like to hope that many people will not get deeper into dating AI and these other sorts of ways because
Hmm.
there's not so much of the unknown, of the unpredictable of what a human is, right? Like it's
Hmm.
not as
Hmm.
controllable. We don't want the fake flowers. We want the ones that live and die, right? And so when we think about relationships, there's some sort of magic and beauty to the unpredictable, but it's also the suffering, right? Because you're like, well, what are they thinking? What are they thinking? What are they
Hmm.
thinking? And so
Hmm.
you get more comfortable with that. And I also really appreciated how you talked about in your marriage the shift that occurred for you in terms of that big shift of not having, you know, the same issues once you stepped out of that dynamic. And I think it really points to a lot of my work with psychedelics, and the framework to that sort of work when I'm doing psychedelic assisted psychotherapy is the importance of the set and setting. Right. And so I bring that into all of my work with sexuality is what is the set and setting? And so if I'm thinking about your experience, right, the setting of that container and that marriage, right, playing such a huge role. And I think so often we go into the individual, especially in our like white Western patriarchal models where you put the diagnosis on the individual, not the context of the situation, but the individual, right? And so when I think about your situation, I
Hmm.
expand out from that to like, what is the setting along with your mindset, right, that played to that? And I really do hope that we can bring more of that systemic, wider setting lens into our sexual healing work.
Hmm. Right. Whatever's happening in your sexual world is happening in a certain context, and it's not just happening inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's amazing when I'm working with couples like sexual performance anxiety, which
Yeah.
can contribute to premature ejaculation, erectile
Right.
dysfunction, or just not good sex, or whatever it is, can go away with work on one or two areas. One being like the individual work of regulating your body instead of going into people-pleasing mode.
Right.
But also, or fight or flight, but
Yeah.
also the other thing is your relationship. When I see a sexual pursuer and a sexual withdrawer, someone wanting sex more and someone pulling away, sometimes I've seen that go away when the pursuer learns to really ground themselves in their desire to be wanted and breathe with it instead of this like really anxious energy, but learn
Yeah.
really to tap into the pleasures in the room, their nervousness, hold themselves. But other times I've seen it go away. I mean, it's usually a combination when their partner pursues them or
Mm.
says something in some way that says, I do want you. And then it slows their partner down. And you can handle it as a team. The more you want me, the less I'm hungry, really starving, going into a buffet and being like, oh my God, I need to eat everything really, really, really quickly.
Right.
But the more you feel like, oh, I feel wanted, the more it's like you're going into that same, buffet, but you're kind of satiated. And so it really does, there's a big focus on the individual lens and especially in like masculine ideals that we're
Mhm.
taught around you should be able to fix it all within yourself, I feel like fails a lot of people because it's happening in a relational element.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All the messages, right? We're talking about premature ejaculation, needing to have that hard cock the whole time. Like the amount of
Hmm.
people who can't fathom having like a soft cock erotic experience is
Hmm.
heartbreaking, let alone the taboos of any sort of like anal play or prostate play that isn't
Hmm.
just coming from the individual or even the partner, right? Like it's that larger system that tells us what's the narrative of quote unquote normal sexual relating, and anything outside of that makes you quote unquote abnormal, which threatens disconnection, which is one of our deepest needs evolutionarily, right? We know that one of the worst forms of torture is to be isolated, put into isolation, right? And so
Hmm.
we have these deep needs to be connected. And so if you're telling me that I go do that anal play, I might be disconnected, it's often not that conscious, right? It's not like we're like anal
Hmm.
play equals this, but we like know subconsciously that that's not cool. If I go tell my friends, they're going to shudder at me, right? And so then there's that moment where you don't express that desire to explore that because of so much of the context of the relationship and the systems that are so deep. It's a lot
Hmm.
of work with the unconscious, I feel like here, and bringing it into more consciousness so that we have more embodied awareness and autonomy to choose. Like you're saying, to be with your desire rather than just reacting, being at that buffet, to scarfing it down. It's coming back to slow down so that you respond rather than react.
Hmm. Right. So you have choice in the moment
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just feeling like this is automatic.
Yeah. And I have so much understanding for how restricted we are. I wrote this newsletter for my pleasure activists email listserv, and it's about the forbidden cookie jar, especially in non-monogamy, right? How if we know with kids, right, if you tell them you get one cookie and only one cookie, and I'm going to put the rest of the jar up here on this tall shelf, and you can't have any other cookies. The second the parents are gone, that kid runs and has no understanding of what it means to like pace yourself in terms of sweets. Often you get that horrible stomach ache, similar things with a buffet, right? And so I
Hmm.
think about so many of us have been restricted, restricted, restricted. And then when you get access, we're just like gorging. And especially I see that in new relationship energy with folks who are opening up their relationships and just starting to get into the possibility of having multiplicity. And so then you're like, gorge, 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 new relationship, right? And then you come back to that moment and you're like, oh shit, a lot of wreckage around like all the people that maybe, you know, I like to hold that nuanced stance of accountability and also understanding of what the systems have done to us, right? So there's accountability in that NRE that we need to be holding, and also an understanding of how, because of the restrictions, it makes sense that we wouldn't have that sense of internal regulation around our desires and pleasures.
It's such an intoxicating energy to
Yeah.
be in new relationship energy, which I think you you mentioned the forbidden, or
Yeah.
like it brings up in me this sense of like the most exciting sex is when there's both safety and risk.
Mm,
And in new relationship energy, you don't yet have security with this person.
yeah.
They're new.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of risk.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also, showing you a lot of signs they want you.
Yeah.
So there's this, safety, and and it's a really exciting energy.
Yeah. And as we were saying before, in terms of the ways that we make narratives and trying to find control, right? Some people will meet someone, they're like, this is my person, we're getting married. It's been one day. This is my person, I'm getting married. I know it. I'm so confident. And I'm like, whoa, And so it's like,
Nicole, we just met.
exactly. I know. I had one of my clients though say that. I was like, okay, like I want to hold space for like what they're experiencing and honoring that. And also, maybe we can slow down a little bit, right? Because I actually did have that on a second date. Someone get this. I was on a second date with a polyamorous person, and we were telling each other all about our partners and all about this. He's like, my partners would say I'm being so bad right now, but Nicole, we could get monogamously married. I could see it for us. And you're telling me you just told me about all your other partners. I'm telling you about mine. You're telling me on a date too, we could get monogamous. What? Like, there's so many levels to that problem. Anyhow, coming back.
Well, look, I mean,
No,
I
so let's
think
go for it.
that really connects to like what this
Yeah.
this podcast is about, which is sexual performance anxiety, which is
Yeah.
what do we do when something feels vulnerable for us? What
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
person did, and I think a lot of us maybe have done that at points, but it kind of like explodes out of you. You're like, I'm feeling so much, whatever it is for this person, and what am I going to do with it? Like it's going to just explode out of me. And there are
Yeah.
consequences to
Yeah.
what, like that might freak you out,
It did.
or like that might set a lot of high expectations if it didn't freak you out. But like instead of being able to go and handle that energy of like noticing like, oh, I'm feeling a lot of pleasure with this person. Can I breathe into that? Because if we can't breathe in those vulnerable states, then you're actually in fear. I think that the thing that's interesting about fear versus excitement, this connects to performance anxiety, is like they show up almost the exact same. They're almost
Right.
identical patterns in the body. Elevated heart rate, both
Right.
fear and excitement have tension, heat.
Right.
The only consistent difference is in excitement, we're breathing. In
Mm.
fear, we're holding our breath.
Mm.
And so when you're like sexual performance anxiety is coming up, or you're feeling like I need to make sure I give my partner an orgasm, or I need to make sure I look good, or
Yeah.
why am I not getting hard, or like I need to stay hard, or what if I come quick, or whatever, however the anxiety is coming up, like can you check with your breath?
Mm.
And can you slow yourself down? Because anything you do from that really fear place isn't gonna be that sexy.
Right.
Even if you're doing the things your partner wants. But when you slow down and you breathe, what I've noticed is when people connect with their erotic energy and they slow down, just connect with their body, anything you say or do from that place is pretty sexy. It's the
Mm-hmm.
difference between like, I really want you to want me in my words or my actions, or like if I take a few breaths, and even if I still really want you to want me, it's like,
Yeah.
I want you to want me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can say the same thing, but
Yeah.
when you're accessing your breath, a lot of those things go away. So,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. It comes from that space of trusting in the self, right?
Hmm.
And so when you're able to take that deep breath and you haven't had too much caffeine, right? I'm like feeling it in this current moment. When you haven't had too much caffeine, you can really slow down to be with that and not grasp so hard. What was coming to mind for me was a premature ejaculation of your vulnerability, right? Not just your sperm, right? But your vulnerability and the speed at which that comes through.
Juicy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What does that spark for you?
Well, it's just, yeah, that spilling out that that person you
Yeah.
mentioned did of like, I need to control the moment. So what am I going to say? Because I'm experiencing so much like for this person. And then it's like, we're going to get married or like, we're going to monogamously get married or whatever. But it is like a premature ejaculation, which is really just saying, oh, I'm experiencing so much tension and I can't contain it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And can you come back to the senses? Can you come back you could be the senses, like what do you see? What do you smell that you
Right.
enjoy? Or I really think the key is to come back to the breath.
Mm.
It is
Yeah.
nearly impossible to stay in the fight or flight state when you're breathing deeply.
Right.
And erection or wetness both come from the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. It's like feed and breathe. It is slowed down. It's relaxed. And orgasm comes from the sympathetic nervous system, which is
Yeah.
like fight or flight.
Yeah.
And so erotic energy has tension.
Right.
And if quickly you move to, oh my God, fight or flight,
Yeah.
well, you're either not going to be in parasympathetic, which is when blood flow goes to the genitals. So you're either not going to get hard, not going to get wet. Or if you go to sympathetic really quickly, that's where orgasm comes from, and you
Mm.
might come quickly.
Yeah.
So, reframing the story or whatever aside in your brain, if you can just breathe yourself down, whatever you do once you get calm again will probably be sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you do when you're in a frantic mode probably won't be that sexy.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when that whole time you're trying to get your partner to orgasm or get your partner to like what you're doing or make sure you're looking good or whatever it is, it's a paradox of like sexual performance anxiety because performance anxiety is one of the most frustrating sexual experiences because the
Mm.
very thing you do to try to fix it
Yeah.
is often what disconnects you even more. Really hyper focusing on the other person's experience is actually going to cause, further anxiety and may even push them away, which might make you more anxious, whereas coming back to yourself is the very thing you need to do, which
Mm-hmm.
most people don't do.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
hyper focus on their either how they're bad or their partner.
Mm. Heartbreaking to think about so many
Mm.
lost moments of pleasure in that spiral.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, this is why I love teaching yoga so much, so, right? And to do it in
Mm.
person, to really, really be with the breath, to invite people to slow down. And my practice when I was teaching used to be so fast. I think because I was in grad school and there was so much that I was carrying that I had so much tension. The body was like, go, 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 go. Like this
Right.
fast, crazy vinyasa class that I would teach with some
If
EDM
only I
music.
perform this yoga right. If only I teach right. If only I make all them feel good, then I'll feel good.
Oh,
But that's
yeah.
just anxiety
Oh,
talking.
and get this. As the teacher, I'm like, what if I slow down? I feel like people are gonna hate that. They're gonna hate it because I, as a type A businesswoman building all of this, I'm very fast, right? Like I do all this stuff, right? So the idea of
Hmm.
slowing down for me and teach, I just start projecting out my own performance anxiety, right? Is like my
Right.
students are gonna hate this because
Hmm.
I have a hard time with it.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's
so,
exactly it. It's you go into like your own sense of badness because that allows you to feel control. Oh, I know what's going to happen.
Right.
They won't like me.
Right.
Now I get to feel control instead of, I like to just like name what's true for me in that moment. If I'm not focusing on breath, it's just like noticing, like, I guess in your example, like, or maybe we'll go to a more sexual example, like
Yeah.
noticing when that energy comes up, like, oh, I want to feel wanted,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of course. And like to even just say yes or of course.
Yeah.
Like if my head's doing what your head did in the yoga class of like, they're gonna not like me for this. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I really want to feel wanted right now.
Yeah.
Or I
Yeah. To sit with
really want
that.
to feel they lust for me.
Right.
And just say, yeah. And then for whatever reason that really helps me. It's just returning to my own experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then can I source that for myself?
Same one.
Of course, as I spoke to earlier, we all need to be loved. And so we're not an island. You can't just always resource all of that by yourself. However, in that moment, following with you, right? Oh, I'm anxious that they're not going to like this. Oh, I really want to be wanted. And then the next step of, and I know that what I teach is powerful. And if these aren't the right students for that, I trust that the right ones will come. I
Mm,
know I have that. Right. So, like, sourcing that internally, like, of course, I'm hot. Of course, I'm sexy. Of course, this person wants me. So, that
mm,
next level of narrative, which is really affirming the self. And of course, we do it, we're interconnected. So, there is no individual, right? Like, we find our resilience, our strength through our community and all of the relationships that we have. So I acknowledge that my ability to say that is because I have other people who have loved me and affirmed me in that, and students who have come, right? But there are moments where those people aren't in there. And can you, like, truly in the moment physically, they're maybe in your head, right? But can you source that in those moments too, rather than going down the other one of the spiral of the doubt and the shame and all of that sort of stuff? I think that's the nuanced dance of interconnection, right?
mm,
Individual and the community, to hold both.
mm. Yeah. To be able to stay in your individuality and to stay in community and to tap into the resourcing that
Yeah.
both of those can provide.
And so I'm
Mm.
curious for you, Erin, in the here and the now, right? We've talked a little bit about your past and the things that you've worked through and the presence that you've come to, the slowness, the breath. What are you exploring in the here and the now?
Mm, so many things.
Yeah.
Do you like Esther Perel?
Yes, I do. Of course. Of course.
And like I know of course and like it's like easy to idolize Esther Perel and how her like love is the language of having, desire is the language of wanting, and like it's all about creating mystery. And I've used
Mm,
to work so much with couples on creating that sexual excitement, right? Re-bringing individuality and re-bringing obstacles. And that is true. But in doing so, I lost a little bit of touch with the roots of those things naturally occur
mm,
when there's safety
mm,
and closeness and a couple has repaired. And it's been so alive for me to just help couples not necessarily create more mystery,
mm.
create more obstacles that can create hot sex, and all the things that Esther Perel really made me excited about.
Yeah.
But actually, to recreate the spark in a long-term relationship, it's incredible what slowing a couple down and having them state their more vulnerable emotions when it comes to sex. Like, oh, when you initiate, there's a part of me that feels pressure because I feel like I'm going to let you down if I don't say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, I don't initiate because I don't think you want me, or I initiate so frantically, but underneath that, it's because I don't think you want me. And like to help people actually navigate the more vulnerable emotions and not turn to their automatic response of like, I'm not even going to turn on my erotic energy because I don't want my partner to get turned on. I don't want to feel guilty if I say no, but to like choose to do something different with your partner. Naturally, once you unfold and create a safer environment for the more vulnerable emotion, naturally couples start to just really have hot sex.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a lie for me because with Esther Perel, I'm actually falling a little out of love with like this person who I really, really like idolized. And I'm realizing not that her stuff isn't amazing, but the emphasis once there is a safety for the more vulnerable parts of what's happening underneath people's behavior in sex and an understanding of it, people end up having hot sex.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We can have our critiques and admiration at the same time. I've got my critiques, I've got my thoughts. We see the beauty of that moment in our sessions, not necessarily the hot sex, of course, but when you're slowing that couple down to talk about those tender parts and then they lean towards one another,
Hmm.
right? Or it's a
Hmm.
kiss or a handhold, which is, truly merging the bodies together. Of course, there is the sex that later happens and all of that, but you see those moments as a
Hmm.
healer, as a person holding that space where you really get that vulnerability out, and then they look at each other. And I've been there too. I still do couples therapy and own therapy for myself because I find it fascinating. Just
And they
keep putting
see
my
each other anew again, and they
yes,
lose the responsibility to need to caretake their partner, but instead try something new.
absolutely. And so what I love and would like to add to Esther's discussion of the obstacle, right? Like there's so many, maybe like structural obstacles or these other sorts of, like longing in terms of a new person or longing because there's this forbidden power dynamic and I'm not supposed to want my blah, 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 whatever. You know what I mean? Personally, my favorite obstacle is our existential isolation. And
What?
hey man, my theoretical orientation is deeply feminist
What,
and
what
existential.
does
Yeah.
that mean? That
Yeah, yeah.
existential isolation turns you on?
Yeah, it does. It fucking does turn me on. It does. It does. Yeah, because it's the ultimate obstacle. And sometimes we can't, I will say
What
actually,
does it mean? What is it?
yeah,
What
yeah,
do you
yeah,
mean?
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. So, I am a meaning making creature.
Hmm.
And so constantly right now, I'm making narratives of narratives of narratives. And so even if theoretically you and I sat together through every single moment of the rest of our lives together, I am still going to look at you and there will be millions, billions of thoughts that I will never know that went through your head, Aaron, because I couldn't possibly because of our like isolation. Truly, there's so much in here going on in my head, so much in your head that we could constantly try to tell each other. And even then, we're only still saying, here's my page, here's your page. I think I see what's going on in your page, but I will truly never be inside your psychological existence in your head. I can't. And that's part of the existential, like psychotherapy lens of one of the givens, right? It's death, existence, isolation, and meaning, right? So isolation. We truly are up here in our heads by ourselves. And so my addition to Esther Perel's sense of the obstacle is, what if the obstacle is truly our individuation existentially? And often we forget that, right? We get into these long-term relationships and we're like, I know that guy. I know what he does. I know what he says. I know how he's going to respond. And that's a lot of the work we do as healers, is trying to bring in more curiosity to the fact that our partners, our lovers are constantly ever unfolding and changing, right? And so in that
Hmm.
moment where you just think you know what your partner's going to say, you think you know how they're going to respond, you're forgetting how separate that person is, the entire universe that they have inside their head, right? And so if you really sit with that, that starts to become almost a spiritual practice because now you're like, wow, this person across from me is constantly changing a whole universe of meaning making and billions of thoughts that I will never know. And even if I tried, I couldn't. Ooh. Like that does do it for me. I'm like, wow, okay.
Well, what that brings up for me is one time I was in a training and the teacher brought up if you're ever bored on a date and you think this person is so boring, tap into your own sense of curiosity.
Mm.
Like, what would be fun for you instead of putting all of that responsibility in their hands to, like, if you're like, there's probably something that even outlandish that you could do that would entertain you. Like let your
Uh-huh.
mind go
Uh-huh.
and don't place the responsibility on the other person. So if you're like in that long-term relationship, like you're saying, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I know this person's thoughts, I know this person's, that is maybe true to some point. Like you know a lot of things about this person, but also you're whether or not that's true, whether or not you believe in Dr. Nichols' existential isolation thing being hot,
Yeah.
you can re-tap into like, well, if it's a date, like, what am I curious about? Or what would be
Mhm.
fun for me? Or what do I want to order on the menu that I want?
Mhm.
Or if it's sex, like, what would feel pleasurable to my eyes? What would feel pleasurable to say? What would feel pleasurable to hear? What would be, pleasurable to feel? And what would feel edgy for me? It's like in Adrienne Marie Brown's like scream your own name.
Mm.
And there's the curiosity of another person, and then there's like letting go of the steering wheel and letting yourself be surprised when you just ask yourself like, what am I curious about? Or what would be
Mm.
fun for me?
Mhm.
And waiting until something appears. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds like play.
Yeah, I think that is play.
Right? Right? Like learning to play more, trusting
Hmm.
the unfolding of what
Hmm.
arises.
Hmm.
I'm curious for you, as someone who's equally in this work, there's so much in our heads when we play. How do you let it all go to be in the moment?
Well, naturally, when you're feeling safe, like you can with
Right.
someone, you end up more in that. If you imagine the people you feel most playful with, you're probably
Mm.
feeling not judged with them.
Right, 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 right.
How do I let it all go?
Because I'm like
Mm.
mid orgasm going like, fuck, that's a good research study on this. That position, that thing we just, oh my God. You know, and I'm like, damn girl, you gotta just come, you know? Sometimes some days are better than others, but
Well, and I think like that's your experience
yeah.
mid orgasm, and I think for a
Yeah.
lot of men, or maybe sometimes
Yeah.
me, the experience mid orgasm is like vulnerable thoughts of like, well, now I'm
Mm.
done, like now this is
Yeah.
done or whatever. And I think there's a moment where we are most losing control,
Yeah.
where a part of our ego wants control again,
Mm.
and sometimes I just label like out of control. And then I'm like, what
Yeah.
does the feeling of out of control feel like?
Mm.
Oh, it feels like my breath is tight, my chest is tight. Mm, can I experience out of control?
Yeah.
And then what happens in my chest? Like just saying yes to experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like thinking is just a way to leave our experience and
Mm.
to find
Mm-hmm.
control again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Depends. And
But
fantasy play.
go on.
Like I can know that certain narratives will like really get me off, whether it's coming to a vision, like truly coming while thinking about a vision in terms of that sort of meditative practice. Have you ever done that sort of like embodiment? That's usually something I do in my solo exploration. No?
That sounds delightful. It sounds very energetic.
Yeah. Like, because I am thinking in those moments. I have not formally trained in any of that world of like sex magic and people that kind of practice that. That is not something that I've yet tapped into of any caliber. However, like the ability to like, one of my favorite things to do in preparation for my podcast work is to like masturbate and have that full experience where I am really aligning with the vision of where I want to go with my life as I come. Like that is what I'm coming to. And so I don't know if that's just control or if it's more so really aligning my pleasure and my body's response truly to where I want to go with my life. And that like, wow, that is a rocker of a
That's
practice.
so lovely. I feel like any practices where we come to our intentions of life and to have ritual around intention.
Yeah.
So easy to get lost in the day. And for me, like walking just like in next to some trees or body of water and having the intention or having the like thought of like, okay, every time I walk this certain path, I go to this one tree and I refined my intention. And for you, it's like when you masturbate,
Yeah.
I feel like how lovely to have that way to refine yourself and your deeper intention.
Right. Because it takes a lot of shame release, you know, to do that. Well,
Which part?
to come on top of money or to come on top of a vision or come on any of that, like that, you know, like there, you know, that takes a lot of shame release. Like there's previous versions of myself. I still wear my purity ring. I came from purity culture. My family is
That's fun.
Mormon, you know?
I think it's lovely. I think that's so lovely to take something, anything that at one point you felt shame with
Right.
and own it.
Yeah.
Own it.
Exactly.
I guess that's why, like me, I was talking about desire earlier.
Right.
For me, like really owning it and that took the shame away and allowed me to connect with both other people and my own desire so much more richly. And I'm guessing for you, this practice allows you to connect to your orgasm so much more richly.
Right. Yeah, because it's not under the sheets anymore. It's not this scared performance. It's not performance, it's embodiment. It's almost kind of the opposite, right? It's rather than the external, it's the internal in that moment. Like truly for me or for yourself in that moment where you're walking to the lake, right? And you really come back to your intention. It's, you know, I love working with my clients and inspiring them to really pair together their erotic energy with their life desires and not to have those things be so put into two boxes. I really do think that your erotic life force is tied to your alignment. And so if you're in that job that you hate, if you're doing these things, the relationship that's not in alignment, like you're not going to feel that desire. I think the more that you're in alignment with those pieces, the more that erotic energy flows. And so it's much easier to come to a vision because so
Yeah,
much
you
of
can
that
use it as a compass. You can like
right.
walk around and drop into your pussy or your cock, whatever bit you got, and let instead of your mind or let or your eyes just like constantly checking in like what turns me on, and I feel like it's an interesting experiment to use that as a compass or like when not necessarily turn you on but where does my my cock or my pussy or whatever like
Yes.
want me to go, what decision on the do I need to make, and just using that twinge down there
Yeah,
as yeah, that's where I want to go. It can be
absolutely.
really interesting.
Yeah, and I've so many educators have spoken about that, like follow your pussy, follow your cock, right? Love that. Now, I walked into a web with that, as any new poly person does, in the sense of I want to encourage listeners to do that, to follow that with the discernment that comes with what we spoke to at the beginning with NRE, because what I know, especially around women's desire, is that women's desire drops off faster in long-term relationships, way faster than men. And we also see how when women go back into the dating field, it really pops up. And so, in terms of desire, and so there's these deeper questions right now that I have as a researcher about eroticism and specifically women compared to men, given that research in monogamy. Wow. What sort of novelty do women truly crave? And we could get into evolutionary theory. It's a lot. I have talked about that on the podcast, but even if we put aside the why for now and we like see the research that novelty is really important for women, you could start saying, wow, my pussy's responding to this novelty, this novelty, this novelty, that novelty. And the reality is my long-term relationships, I start to hit some level of habituation. And that's not to say that I don't love these people that I've been with for 3 years, but there is a real reality that with any pleasure in life, the more you are exposed to it, the more gratitude and intentionality it takes to actually really feel the pleasure. Because that's an habituation
Well,
that
I
happens in
think you've lost
anything.
risk. You've lost risk in a long-term relationship. And
Mm.
now, what part of you can you try or expose? What would be the most risky thing that that's within your limits that you want to say or want to hear? And because the feeling you get in a new relationship is when safety meets risk. And now you're in a long-term relationship and you just have safety. But it's on you to tap into yourself. If you have to see which lever. Is it the safety
Mm-hmm.
lever? Do you not feel emotionally safe with your partner? Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's that. Then you got to address that. That's the foundation. But then there's what makes you feel vulnerable, maybe even slightly embarrassed or out of control. What would it be like just right now to think of some things that feel a little either wrong or scary or out of control around sex that you either want to say or do or hear or receive that feel a little bit edgy for you? And if you bring that back into your long-term relationship, you're getting the same thing that makes a new person so exciting.
Do you really
Hmm.
do you believe that at the core? I have thoughts, but like do you like I feel like
Do I believe
monkey
that at the core? Yeah, I'm
yeah, I'm like,
like I'm
ah,
like with my partner, I am like really aware, like I'll like let myself say something that I'm like, oof. It doesn't always need to be like the really sexy trope. It could be
yeah,
like a really
totally.
vulnerable
Oh,
thing.
usually it is. Yeah.
Or, like being in an energy, like a really dominant energy
Mm,
or a really submissive energy, something where I'm
yeah.
like, I'm not sure. And then getting it met and
Mm,
feeling devoured in that energy or trying something different. Like, yeah,
mm,
I know that once I stop doing that, like my sex life is gonna suck
mm,
or at least be somewhat boring.
yeah.
And it's on me to keep playing with what feels edgy for me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you're bringing in novelty through that, right? That's the
Well,
experience.
I'm bringing in novelty. It is novelty, but I think the ingredient that makes it most tasty is risk, or
Yeah.
it's vulnerability, or there's an out of control, or
Yeah.
there's a way to say it, and that's what was in a early relationship,
Right.
accompanied with enough safety.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the reason
But
why I
you seem
appreciate.
skeptical.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, do
yeah, yeah.
you really believe that?
I I want to believe it, and I hear that you do. And then my next thought is like, well, what if this is the manifestation of the research showing itself? Like like the gendered bias that we have between our two experiences of life. If we see that in long-term relation, and granted, we know that in monogamous relationships, there's a slew of gender factors, social expectations, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like there's a real grief to acknowledge that I'm an animal and a monkey, and that the human brain has craving for novelty in a way that is fundamentally like wired.
Yeah.
I think that's what I just sit with the grief of. Not to say, I want to be clear. Like, I'm having hot sex with my long-term relationships, and I do. Like, we play, we do new scenes, we do all this. But I feel like there's a grief to acknowledging that the novelty of something new, it's always there and always tantalizing in a way that
Yeah, but you
cannot be equated. Not to say that I don't enjoy the sex I have, and I do. I love what we do, and I love the novelty we walk in together with scenes and vulnerability and all of that. But then the novelty of the unknowns is just so wow.
yeah. So in life, it's to keep finding the unknown. You can get it through new people, or you can get it through exploring your own edges. With either way, you're tapping into risk again, and safety and attraction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can do it in any of these ways. I mean, it's like, let's take it out of sex and into a hobby. When the hobby, whatever it is, you master it and it becomes
Mm-hmm.
predictable, it becomes boring. And kind of the opposite, where if at the beginning you don't have like,
Right.
if it's too hard and it's just like totally unpredictable and you just can't figure out how to do it right, you want to give up. But there's a sweet spot, which people call flow state, in between, when there's difficulty, but also a sense of predictability, but enough unpredictability. And that's the juiciest thing because you can lose yourself in it. It's both exciting, but it's also like you can just stay in it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I just think that's what we're talking about. What do you say the research would, well, I guess to put a bow on that, you can get that in a new relationship, you can get that in a long-term relationship, but your sex needs to keep evolving.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do
Yes.
you want to see your partner flirt with someone else in front of you? Do you want to be tied up? Do you want to say, I don't know, say something you feel would be hot to say, or hear something? Or is there something you've wanted to ask your partner for?
Mm-hmm.
And just like constantly exploring that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you're saying the research doesn't say that.
I mean, I'm not saying that. Well, what we know with the research is that women's desire drops off faster than men. Now, the interpretations we make from that is kind of the space you and I are sitting in, right? And I'm wondering if it's about novelty, and you're talking about the vulnerability pieces of it and the novelty of continual exploration. I think I was bringing in the novelty of multiplicity of new people because of the factors, like we were saying, when you're like, oh, I know how this person works. I know how all of that, like, you can't really get around the complexity that when you meet a new person, it's a blank space of all of the novelty there. And so, like, just feeling that monkey brain moment where the monkey's like, oh, new shiny thing, whoa. And at least personally for me, I felt my pussy react to that, and not like my pussy is so much wetter for a new person than for my long-term partners. And that's not to say that the sex isn't hot, not to say that I can't get to amazing psychological places, but to fundamentally acknowledge that
How
just
can
the
you experience yourself newly in your long-term relationship?
I mean, I don't just make myself wet like that. Like it
But how do you
takes
how can you, what situation would you be in where you could experience, and you don't need to answer this, but like where you experience yourself newly in an energy that would be edgy for you in your current relationship?
with like masturbation myself or with other people.
Uh, Other people. Really, you could do both, but I think here we're talking about other people.
I think more kitchen table polydynamic sex, not at play parties, because I've done a lot of that at play parties and it's a set container. So I think more at home vulnerability of the domestic with all of my partners together.
And how would what new parts of yourself that are like sort of edgy would you be faced with?
Uh, it's continually that fear that, which is diminishing each day, but that,
But it's causing you to smile. So
yeah.
something is still edgy about it. Yeah.
Well, like my one of my partners said, like, oh, let's have Thanksgiving. I can use names. One of my partners, Rashid, was like, let's have Thanksgiving and have Cooper come. And I'm like, great. Okay, so now I'd be at my partner Rashid's family, who's like newer. No one else has been polyamorous before, and here's Cooper together, right? So that sort of stuff where it's like really hitting the reality of what I'm doing in like generational pieces. That's like, whoa. So bringing that into
So it's a little edgy.
yeah, it's edgy to be that vulnerable with the reality of what I actually practice. I do it in a podcast space. I do it here and there, but like the second we bring in parents and then judgment of the parents, aka why it's probably a little bit more exciting to do it in a home domestic space than in a play party, which has that like edge. You don't tell your parents about the play party. You know, like
Uh-huh.
there's a
But
different
it's like,
space to that.
will I be liked or like,
It's like, will I be approved and will they not leave me for seeing
right?
all of that? Yeah.
Which is the same thing you're getting in an early date.
The early, no, maybe this is
Will I
where,
be approved?
no, because I know I'm fucking amazing. I know that. That's why, like, I'm not worried about that part. And if they don't like it, don't come to my yoga class. That's fine. I think it's the novelty of like, it probably stems from that beginning premise of my difference with the existential isolation and you feeling like you might not agree with that part. That might be the differentiation we're having. Because for me, I'm looking at this new human like, wow, like a whole universe I've never gotten to see anything into. What is this? So when I meet a new person,
So I was wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, correcting me there.
Yeah.
But there is, while that part, I think maybe my head was didn't, mm, my presumption wasn't right, and thanks for correcting me.
Mhm.
Either way, there's something edgy that you can tap into where you
Oh
can
yeah.
experience yourself in a new way,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm imagining where it almost feels like, oh my God, I don't know what's gonna happen because now my partner's parents are meeting me in the context of my other partner being there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's gonna happen. And something is sexy about that.
Yeah, it
But
is.
there's also the safety of having your partners there.
Yeah.
And I think if we just spend some moments constantly tapping into what new ways can I experience myself that are sexy and a little edgy for me with my partners, we can create some really interesting things and constantly do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with that part.
But yeah, regarding the research, I do, we're talking about some of the most fun parts of sex,
Yeah.
which is like the novelty and the fantasy, but I do see the bigger problem in long-term relationships being a lack, a couple ends up in a cycle
Yeah.
where they're both a little triggering some of the prickly parts of each other, and then they feel less safe, and arousal goes down
Mm.
because some of the prickly parts are getting triggered, and then it's actually less on the exciting stuff we were talking about, the risk. It's
Yeah.
more that arousal starts to die
Mm.
because the safety, the emotional safety to be really who you are goes down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's often learned through, I mean, obviously there are big ruptures that happen, but sometimes it's very small ruptures.
Mhm.
You come home, you had some sort of day, you try to make that bid for affection, if we want to use the Gottman terms, and your partner, sorry, keeps texting, keeps texting. Oh, okay, wow,
Mhm.
okay, I can't bring that, you know? And then that repeated, that slow wear down, wear down, wear down, wear down.
Right.
Yeah, because I think some people think, oh, well, we didn't have a big rupture. But when you look at the history of the relationship, you can see how there were these slow moments of it building over time. And now we can get into the level of classical conditioning, where this many exposures to this stimulus with this pairing, now your brain is expecting that. And we have to have
Hmm.
a huge pattern interrupt if we're going to have any sort of change with that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And that's a big turnoff.
So, what do you recommend your clients do?
Well, when I see a couple, it will talk about the sexual cycle that they're in. You know, who is the initiator, the pursuer, who's the withdrawer, and then we'll start to play out what happens. What happens when you pursue and what shows up in you, the withdrawer, like what is why what happens inside of you when you're pulling away? Sometimes it's guilt. Sometimes it's resentment. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's I feel like I need to take care of.
Yeah.
Or sometimes with the pursuer, they're not pursuing necessarily out of erotic energy. They're pursuing in a way because they're not feeling wanted and they're really trying to feel wanted. And there starts to become this tape that shows up that's probably been in your life since before the relationship
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, I'm really a bad person if I let my partner down.
Mm.
And then that just shuts you off from
Yeah.
your arousal. Or a tape of like, oh, if they're unavailable, it means I'm not a wantable person. And then it's like your partner who's right next to you. If you say, I'm not available right now, they just go 1,000 miles away, even though
Mm.
they're right next to you. And it's
Yeah.
about really exploring those tapes and choosing a new path. So for withdrawal, I mean, there could be many things, but it's like, is there a way you can say no without feeling guilty about it?
Mm.
And for a lot of people, they say no, but in order to leave their own vulnerability, they criticize their partner. Or they say, they kind of, when they say no, they go 1,000 miles away, even though they're right next to their partner because they feel so guilty about it.
Mm.
And to their partner who's pursuing them or initiating, the most painful part might be that they lose their partner a
Mm.
1,000 miles away. And so they're like really unwinding the cycle and seeing the more I do this, the more it triggers my partner to do this, the more they do that, the more they pursue, the more I withdraw, which triggers in me a certain feeling. The more I withdraw, the more they pursue because they're feeling unwanted. And then it's not like either of you are recognizable to each other.
Mm.
It's like the both of you are actually just not really who you are, but who you are in
Mm.
fear.
Mm.
Even on smaller scales, it's about returning to the more vulnerable emotion, naming that, and starting to change your actions. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
And recreate safety in those edgy moments.
Right. Absolutely. And even thinking about some of the client sessions I've had this week where people have felt like, wow, there's this thing I really want to tell you, but I don't think I can. I'm scared. I don't think I can. To like slow down with those clients too and even ask, well, what's the fear if you did share whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Not don't share what it actually is right now. We're not doing that because that's the big fear, right? But what is the fear beneath that, right? And I feel like that's an invitation for all of the listeners to think about if there are these pieces that you do feel like, wow, I don't know if I can share this with my partner. I don't know. What would it mean to come to your partner and say, I have these pieces that I'm scared to tell you, and actually process what your fear is if you were to process it, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
circling the plane before you land it, right? Like we're finding the right time to land that, and give yourself that space. I think it kind of, and I'm sure you know that, right? In terms of all the training you did as a therapist, the trauma, we don't just go deep into it. We'll talk, what would it feel like if you shared this trauma? What
Hmm.
would this, and right? And that creates the safety to be able to go there.
Hmm. And here we are in now there's safety, but there's also risk because you're in this
Mm-hmm.
new territory and it can be really sexy
Yeah,
again.
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you challenging me. It's fun to be met with some challenge in
You
this
too.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like when you challenge me. It removes my existential isolation.
Oh, there it is. Well, Aaron, I'm curious, is there anything that you would want to say to your younger self? If you take a moment to really connect back to your younger self who is having premature ejaculation, all of the performance anxieties, what would you say to your younger self?
Mm. I see how bad you want to be wanted, and I want you even in this state.
Mm. Hence the
I wrote,
projection.
yeah. I wrote a little about like insecurity on my website, which is aaronfrazin.com, which I guess I explore that a little on because what he needed was like work around.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, insecurity.
Do you think maybe that's why you projected that to me in that moment of the example with a new person? Because you're
Oh,
like, oh, you want to
totally,
be wanted.
totally could have.
Yeah.
Totally could have.
I'm seeing that. Okay, okay. Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense,
Mhm.
right? Like if that's the place it came from for you, then that's often what we see in other people, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Ah, well, I appreciate you being
Called out.
called in, called in. We were going for it. We're opening up, but I appreciate you being so vulnerable about those pieces because what I do know is that there are so many people who are going through the same things. And you being so vulnerable about your journey and the work that you've done with clients, it really opens that door to release the shame, to know that they're not the only person going through this and that there is another side, right? You're a testament to that, that there is another side to this when you do
Hmm.
the work and when you get to those vulnerable, tender parts of yourself, that there's hope. And so I'm really grateful that you came on the show to offer that and all of your
Hmm.
wisdom today.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
loved doing this with you, and
Yeah.
it was delightful.
Amazing. All right, Erin. So as we're coming to the end of our time, I'm going to take another deep breath with you. And I'll ask you the closing question that I ask everyone on the show, which is, what is one thing that you wish other people knew was more normal?
One thing I read in my studies of premature ejaculation is most men start as early ejaculators.
Mm.
The majority of men start off that way. I think that's an interesting thing because you see one thing in porn and you
Oh,
hear
yeah.
one thing in stories, but you might be more normal than you think.
Yeah, definitely. And with that normalization comes conversation, right? Community.
Mhm.
And knowing that you're not the only one, which I think eases that moment as you were talking about all the narratives that go in your head, right? So when you know that you're not the only one going through this, I think it makes it an easier time.
Hmm. I love that question.
Yeah, thank you. It's been such a joy to unpack it over the last 5 years and really see where people take it. uh, well, Erin, it's been such a joy. I'm sure all of the listeners are dying to know where can they find you. I know you plugged your website. Anywhere else where people can find you and all of your
You know, I'm off
content?
social media, but
Healthy, good for you.
I have a newsletter and a blog.
Great.
I've written a lot recently about porn, about
Good.
jealousy,
Yeah.
um, about reconnecting intimately in your long-term relationships, about losing the spark. And so it's at aaronfrazin.com, which is AARONFRAZIN.com. Yeah, if you are a couple or an individual who wants to start a new chapter in your sex life, you could reach out to me there.
Great. I'll have all of those links in the show notes below, dear listeners, so you can find them right there and connect with Erin. And so thank you again, Erin, for coming onto the show today. Dear listener, thank you so much for tuning in to Modern Anarchy. Thank you for sharing this episode with your friends, with your lovers, with your community. Truly, it means so much to me, and I am so grateful that you are here. If you are wanting to release jealousy in your non-monogamous dynamics and step into compersion and pleasure-filled connection, you can read my book, The Psychedelic Jealousy Guide, for free on my website. There you will also find so many other free resources, including worksheets on how to clearly communicate and set commitments and boundaries within your non-monogamous dynamics, and other ways to practice clear communication about your sexual desires so that you can step into your most pleasure-filled sex and relationships. So head on over to modernanarchypodcast.com to find all of those free resources. And I look forward to seeing you next week.